Welcome to episode 88 of the G2 on 5G. It's the latest inside scoop on everything 5G. We cover 6 topics in about 20 minutes, and it's brought to you by More Insights and Strategy. I'm Will Townsend, and joining me again this week is fellow analyst Anshel Sag. Let's get started with my first topic. So this week, AT&T announced its private 5G Edge. And why I find it compelling is that they are pairing mobile edge compute capabilities, extending that relationship they already have with Microsoft Azure for 5G core, and now they're leveraging mobile edge compute capabilities from Azure, and they're putting this together in sort of a bundle. And what I also like about it is that they're focused on some discrete use cases like manufacturing. I've spoken to manufacturing in the past as being likely 50% of the addressable market, I believe, for private wireless. And so on the surface, this feels really compelling relative to Verizon, whom have been announcing a lot of MEC deployments with AWS, but it almost feels to me like they're laying the foundation and there isn't really anything in front of them to focus on because they've got to get that mid-band spectrum deployed, but would love to get your insights.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting development because one, it kind of builds on their relationship with Microsoft Azure,
Right.
but also it creates a much more comprehensive solution that obviously has to involve the CSP, much like Verizon's approach does. But I think that this is, to your point, probably a little bit more mature. Probably because AT&T has been doing a lot more network virtualization. I was actually surprised that T-Mobile beat AT&T to standalone. I thought AT&T was going to be the first one with standalone because I didn't even know what network slicing was until I talked to AT&T many years ago. So they've been kind of championing network slicing, and one of the best applications for network slicing is private networks. So I think we're going to see a lot more down the road from AT&T in this space. And to your point, I think it's got a little bit more teeth to it than what we've seen from Verizon.
I'm glad you touched on the network slicing piece, because the other aspect of this announcement is the fact that AT&T is going to take a dual path with this and support not only on-go CBRS spectrum, but to your point, slice their public network to guarantee quality of service for latency and throughput and that sort of thing. So it's a dual strategy. So all around, it looks great. I'll actually at Mobile World Congress next week be meeting with an executive and talking more about this. And so we look to have a great follow-up podcast recapping Mobile World Congress. And I know you and I will be writing Forbes articles as well. But let's move to your first topic this week. And T-Mobile announced an IoT program that harmonizes with Deutsche Telekom.
Yeah, so they're calling this T-IoT, and it's I think the best way to describe it is that it's a global IoT solution. It's a platform in the sense that it's not yet another IoT platform, but rather a cross-carrier, multi-platform, multi-device kind of solution that I think is going to be targeted squarely on extremely large enterprises with very diverse international presences that need to have a single SLA, single contract, basically, have a solution that simplifies their global IoT footprint. And I think that this is what this T-IoT solution delivers, because when you combine Deutsche Telekom and T-Mobile US, that's already an enormous percentage of the global footprint for what's possible in terms of deployment. So I think this is going to be very interesting to see how it can be implemented. And I think, obviously Deutsche Telekom using Mercedes-Benz as one of their partners for this is a demonstration that they have very large enterprise buy-in, and that this isn't just a great idea, but rather something that their customers had been asking for. And Deutsche Telekom and T-Mobile US both need each other to get this kind of scale. And I
Yeah.
think what will happen is we'll probably see them supporting more IoT platforms as this matures. And I think this kind of size and scale that I would expect this solution to provide will likely be an opportunity for IoT platforms to become more standardized and become more commoditized, which is, I think, a good thing in the sense that we have so many of these different little IoT platforms, and we're going to need some consolidation for the market to really take off.
I agree with you. You and I were afforded a pre-briefing opportunity with Patrick Moorhead, our chief analyst and principal of More Insights and Strategy. And what I like about the solution and the go-to-market, to your point, it's multi-access. So LTE, 5G, LoRaWAN, that sort of thing. So they're not forcing anyone down a certain access connectivity point. And I like the fact that they're trying to harmonize things. And to your point, I agree. It's going to be really well suited to large multinational corporations that have offices, globally. To your point, IoT is very fragmented as well, and the acquisition and deployment scenarios vary widely by country, by region, by geography. So I think there's a lot of value here. I think this is just the first step. I think we'll see T-Mobile and Deutsche Telekom mature this over time, but I think it's a great start. And this really puts some wind in T-Mobile's sails in the US with respect to legitimately getting out there in front of their more established competitors that have very mature enterprise businesses with something that's going to be very compelling for large enterprises. So,
and this is also another MWC announcement. So we're probably going to, attend some briefings, talk to some execs from T-Mobile, and we'll get a better understanding of where things are, and hopefully there'll be some demos too.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Let's go to my second topic this week, and I want to talk about Dish, Lockheed, and Intel partnering to build a 5G network for the U.S. Marine Corps at Camp Pendleton, California. I have a couple of friends that are Marines, Mike and Eric, hoorah. But this is exactly what I think Dish needs to focus on. And I've spoke to this in prior podcasts, that for Dish to go just head to head with T-Mobile and with AT&T and Verizon's a losing proposition. They're going to have to find a way to niche themselves into the market. And this is a great example of that. And so what Dish is providing is spectrum as well as engineering services with respect to RF design, Open RAN based wireless solutions, and just knowledge of the 5G ecosystem and devices and that sort of thing. And you could argue on the latter, they're fairly new relative to their competitors, but I do really like this. And 5G is strategic for the military. There have been recent news articles, not from you and I, but from other analysts. And I think it was actually a former executive of Google that was mentioning that the US is well behind places like China with respect to 5G. You and I have talked about the military applications, right, with 5G, with AR and VR and guidance systems and that sort of thing. So this is mission critical. And again, I give Dish kudos, and I believe that this will be a model that they replicate so that they're not going to, just try to go head to head with these very, very well-established incumbent, competitors that they're entering the market against. What are your thoughts?
One, I think it's great that it's a standalone network.
Glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a big deal because I think all the new applications, like I feel like I can't say this often enough. Standalone is the path to success for 5G.
It's the true promise of 5G.
Yeah, exactly. So like everything else, we're just kind of just ignoring the elephant in the room, which is we need standalone for these applications to succeed. And until that happens, 5G is not really. People have justified complaints about 5G, in my opinion. Nevertheless, rant over. I think that having Dish do these kinds of deployments makes sense. I think that if these deployments are limited in scope and don't require too much capital expenditures from Dish, I think there's absolutely an opportunity for Dish to do these kinds of deployments on military bases. Kent Pendleton's in my backyard. I live 15 minutes away from there. So I'm very familiar with it. It's a very mountainous piece of land that's designed to keep San Diego and LA from merging into one mega city. And the reality is, I think if you look at what's going on, Lockheed Martin is really the primary contractor here, and they've subcontracted to Dish and Intel. But ultimately, this is going to be Dish's network that this will run on.
Right.
And to your point, I do think they are much more suited to these kinds of applications and enabling 5G in scenarios where the other operators maybe don't have the time or the resources to commit to it. This is a great opportunity, and it doesn't have to be a public network, and there can be lots of security built in, and hopefully taking advantage of standalone. So greenfield, right? This is a greenfield network deployment, and I think those are great opportunities for Dish.
Great insights. And I'll just comment a little bit on the security part, since that's part of the practice that I employ at More Insights and Strategy. 5G inherently is going to be more secure, and I actually spoke to this on the Today Show, and it was great. I was asked, what are 5G superpowers, and it's certainly massive device support, it's security, and obviously it's improvement in performance, throughput and latency and that sort of thing. And to your point, the point that I made as well, standalone marrying 5G core and 5G RAN is going to make that all, very, very powerful. But let's move to your second topic this week. And ahead of Mobile World Congress, you and I have been on tons of pre-briefings this week. A lot of this information we can't talk about because it's under non-disclosure until next week. But you do want to talk about something that is public, and it's a partnership between Rakuten and Qualcomm.
Yes. So yesterday I got pre-briefed on this. I think I might have actually gotten a pre-brief. No, I got pre-briefed on this even before that.
I've lost track of all the pre-briefs that
I know. I was actually at Qualcomm headquarters last week. And got pre-briefed on this, but it wasn't specifically about Rakuten, but it was about massive MIMO and Open RAN. And now Rakuten is part of this announcement. So Rakuten Symphony, which is their network division that helps with Open RAN deployments, has partnered with Qualcomm to use their X100 5G RAN accelerator card. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, and I actually wrote a Forbes article about that announcement with HPE earlier this week.
Yeah, and then they're using that with their massive MIMO Qualcomm QRU100 5G RAN platform, and they're basically helping Rakuten to deliver Open RAN solutions with this combination of their 5G RAN platform with their X100 5G RAN accelerator card, so they're able to do massive MIMO with Open RAN. This is, obviously an opportunity for Rakuten to deploy both in Japan as well as any customers that they might have abroad. And I have a very strong feeling we'll probably see this at MWC in person. We'll be able to take a look at it and see. But you're the network infrastructure guy, so I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on this. I think it's a big move for both companies.
I do, and why I like it, Rakuten, I've spoken to this point in the past, they've been sort of the poster child for Open RAN. They've bloodied their nose, they've stumbled a little bit, but from my perspective, this partnership potentially demonstrates the notion that Open RAN can be performance optimized with something like massive MIMO, where a lot of naysayers have been saying that Open RAN is really cost optimized or CapEx optimized. So I mean, I didn't have a chance to dig into this. I'm hoping to get more information when you and I are both in Barcelona next week, but on the surface, it looks very compelling. But let's move to my third and final topic this week. And I want to talk about HPE, their telco business unit. They announced their private 5G as a service offering. And I was expecting this, was just waiting for the shoe to drop. And no surprise, they're leveraging their GreenLake consumption model HPE by far has the most mature IT consumption set of services relative to any other infrastructure provider out there. What I also like about this announcement is they're collaborating also with Aruba. Aruba obviously is their lead enterprise networking division that really drives the strategy and the roadmap for pan HPE. So I don't often see a lot of collaboration between pan, the larger HPE organizations and in Aruba. So this is a nice first step. It also validates the fact that Wi-Fi and private cellular will live together within the enterprise. And what's really going to dictate the deployment scenario will be workload, distance propagation, and that sort of thing. So on the surface, it looks, super compelling. I've written about HPE on numerous, occasions. And what I really like about the telco division, they are really focused on software enablement. So from 5G core to automation to orchestration. They also have an extremely strong lab capability in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I've actually spent time with them there. They do a lot of work on blueprinting and proof of concepts and have that NEB certification versus a Dell Technologies, and they're getting more mature. And actually, I'll have more news to share next week. I was disclosed on a couple of announcements with Dell this week. Dell has been more partner up, focus on common off-the-shelf server technology and, sort of, go to market, that direction. Although, again, I'll be sharing some further details that Dell is beginning to mature their approach there. But on the surface, I like it. And I'm expecting at Mobile World Congress that we're going to get a lot more information on other 5G as a service offerings. I'm expecting Salona to have a pretty significant announcement, and on the next podcast, I'll probably speak to that as well. Cisco sort of soft launched their private 5G as a service offering earlier this month. They will be providing more details at Mobile World Congress, which makes a lot of sense. So you're seeing a lot of coalescing around private 5G as a service. There are going to be multiple infrastructure providers that provide it. And like I always like to say, with increased competition breeds cost competitiveness and innovation. So what are your thoughts?
Was not able to attend the HPE briefing, but I did read the slide deck. And I was very impressed with, one, the fact that they were very upfront that Wi-Fi and 5G are complementary technologies.
Yep.
Two, that a lot of this approach is very much about the 5G core. And I like that they already have like pre-integrated 4G, 5G radio solutions with Airspan and GMA. Yep. And then on top of that, I also like that like they've basically got these like core in a box solutions that are like configured and ready to go. So you can even have this like for military applications or like oil rigs. Like they have these solutions already thought of that can be portable and easily, just popped in and go. Yeah. I think that they're really leaning into the core component of these things as well as the edge. And I think that, they really want to be a leader in 5G core. And, at least right now, it looks like they are.
I think they are as well, amongst their traditional competitors and the Lenovo's and the Dells of the world, certainly. And it'll be interesting to see how this matures over time. Again, I also like the collaboration with Aruba. And from my perspective, I'm often asked, what's going to make a private 5G as a service offering successful relative to like all of these, other, offerings. And it's the company that figures out how to simplify it and to make it almost as easy to manage as Wi-Fi within the enterprise. And so I think that was one of the focuses that I heard from HPE this week. That's a similar focus that I hear from Salona, their startup. Salona is actually partnered with Aruba on their as a service offering as well. So HPE is actually offering dual paths here. So it's quite compelling. But let's move to your third and final topic this week. And I caught this news as well. I didn't really dig into it, but Verizon announced a relationship with Audi. to embed 5G in their vehicles, right?
Yep. So that's kind of the crux of the announcement. I think the important thing here is that Audi is actually one of the leaders in implementing cellular connectivity in their cars in the US.
Yeah.
They were one of the first um, to launch 3G and LTE worldwide. So them moving to 5G this early makes total sense. Um, they are obviously partnering with Verizon in the US specifically. So this is a US partnership.
Yeah.
The announcement is that they're going to be available in model year 2024 vehicles, which means 2023, last quarter of 2023.
November. Yeah.
Exactly. So this will probably align pretty well with Verizon's 5G mid-band C-band network being rolled out. That said, they are only expected to have 175 million Americans covered by then.
Yeah.
So by the end of 2024, they'll have 250 million. So I think they'll have a much better footprint by then. And I think their speeds will be very good. So the timing of this is very good for Verizon and for Audi, because in the automotive industry things take time a lot longer than they do in other industries.
Yeah.
And this is good timing for both Audi and Verizon. And this is not the first 5G announcement of an automaker. GM already announced a 5G partnership with AT&T last year, I believe. So we're seeing the alignment of auto manufacturers with cell carriers. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to keep seeing these announcements from different OEMs as they start to plan their 5G deployments.
I agree, and we did speak to Ford and AT&T's lockup. I'm actually surprised that Audi picked Verizon in the U.S. given the lack of maturity and where they're at in their deployment relative to T-Mobile and AT&T.
I was gonna say, from what I've seen, AT&T has been like the number one for auto manufacturers.
Right.
Like way back when I had a Cadillac, it was all AT&T. My Tesla, I'm like 99% sure is AT&T.
Yeah.
So I feel like AT&T has a very strong heritage in automotive when it comes to cellular connectivity. But Verizon getting this win also potentially creates some competition for AT&T. I will say though, as somebody who depends heavily on cellular connectivity in their Tesla, I cannot wait for 5G connectivity, at least in a Tesla-like vehicle, because 4G is kind of slow.
Yeah.
And I might be streaming music, which is fine, and for maps, but for video content, it's not very good because I'm sure they are QoSed probably at 10 megabits.
Mm-hmm. Just don't play those video games, buddy, when you're driving. I heard Tesla shut that feature off because it was.
I didn't even try to play games while I was driving. I didn't really do that. I assumed it was turned off by default.
Right. Well, I'll also mention this, that 5G is going to be critical to get to full autonomy. That's probably not likely for another several years, but the telematics that are required, the road sensors, all of that to make it safe. Tesla's been out in front with that, with their self-driving. It has challenges because you need that infrastructure wrapped around it. 5G is going to provide that low latency and that extremely fast throughput to support that that use case above and beyond what you were talking about with infotainment and
To your point, there's gonna be a lot of CV2X applications with 5G that just weren't possible with 4G, and Audi is actually one of the companies out there that's moving pretty far ahead with CV2X. So we'll see what happens. We don't know what those model year vehicles are going to have in terms of features, but I have a feeling that there's going to be enhanced safety features. Maybe those won't roll out initially when the car is available, but as cars become more software defined, and electrification of vehicles occurs, updates are a constant thing and new features occur. Like my Tesla has way more features today, 2 years later after I got it, than it did when I first got the car. So hopefully Audi is going on the same path with software defined automobiles, and we'll see 5G improve as the car matures.
Well, hey, another great example of monetizing 5G, right? I mean, the Audis, the GMs, the Fords of the world, they're going to be able to sell to their install base upgraded features, right? I mean, I know on a Tesla, you can actually unlock, more horsepower, right? So it's pretty compelling stuff. But hey, it's been another great podcast. As you and I both get ready for Mobile World Congress, why don't you take us home?
Absolutely. We hope our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there would like to provide insights for a specific 5G topic for a future podcast, please reach out to us on social media. Will is at Willtown Tech, and I'm on Anshel. We hope you have a great weekend, and please tune in again next week when we come back from Mobile World Congress.